Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to the Blue Frontier. James here, joined by Ryan and Shan after Everton leave their first match against Sunderland in over 8 years with a point away at the Stadium of Light. A frustrating evening for the Toffees, a Monday evening. Before we get into the match, just a reminder that if you enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and find all of our links in the description. With that, go right to it. To Shan, your choice for summary quote of the day. Take us away.
Had to go with Alan Brody, of course, just great contributor to the Blue Frontier. Alan Brody at Brody and MD, left to rue, early missed chances again, and once the tide turned, one-way traffic and lucky to hold on for a point. McNeil sub Baffling, we'll get to that, don't worry. While better, players left on the bench. Hoping Ndiaye injure minor, good news on that. I'd start Barry again Saturday, can't give up on him so easily. And I think that's a pretty good summary on the day. There are definitely some more vulgar summaries. I just decided to choose a little bit more PG. And with that, Ryan, let's go to the stats.
This type of show we are, Sean. It sounds like ill was a cramp of some sort, right? So thank goodness for that, because I don't want to be without that guy. The stats, I think this was a match that was a tale of really like 2/3 in a way. The first 27 minutes, 7 shots to 1 on Everton's behalf. No dispossessions on either side. It was one of these games that was fairly pass-oriented, vertical, up and down. And then from the 28th minute on, things went very south for Everton. 16-1 in shots, 62.8% possession for Sunderland. And that was pretty much the game. I mean, I don't really even know what to say about it. 4 corners to 1 as well. Just, lots of things happen. We'll discuss those in a little bit, but it was a very distinct change. There was a point of momentum too, and then things went away from Everton, and there was just nothing David Moyes and the team could really do to stop the change. But yeah, lots of talking points on this one, guys.
Yeah, I think the first one we talk about is the singular change David Moyes makes to the lineup going into today is to swap out Beto for Thierno Barry. We saw, of course, the videos of Barry wearing retro Everton kits, the Instagram story saying it's his turn now. Put it out to you guys first. Thoughts on Barry's performance today? I think overall there were some good signs, but clear that neither of these guys are really firing on all cylinders right now.
Just frustrating, I think, when you look at, of course, the momentum changer, which we'll get to with his miss. But I think as a whole, I thought he played pretty good. I mean, before that situation, I thought he was very lively. I think the effort you can't question, because I think there were a few moments that really he kind of was a big part of, including the goal, believe it or not, the first goal by Ndiaye. So for me, I think a pretty decent performance. I think it's just, of course, masked by the miss, and then just once again a very dumb yellow card in just a moment of frustration, which I can understand just given how much pressure he's putting on himself, let alone the fan base right now.
I think the battles weren't good. I mean, 2 of 7 in aerials, 0 for 5 in ground duels. The miss and the stupid yellow. However, I would argue that we looked a little bit more fluid with him in there. I think he's a little quicker. He's maybe a little cleaner on the ball than Beto. He's not going to bully and push anyone back necessarily. Maybe a little better playing between the lines, although neither I think are great at that. I think the knockdown header for Garner was an early chance, which I thought showed a little bit of what he could do. And he was showing a lot of initiative and effort at the beginning of the match, too. He was very active, very lively. The runs in behind threatened. Didn't quite find him a couple times, but it at least stretched out their defense. I think even on the goal, too, although he maybe was kind of stuck by himself and lost the ball, he did a great job winning it back. And I think his run to the right, his ability to run into space a little bit better in the wide areas and can get on the ball and distribute a little bit more, I think gives at least someone like Ndiaye a chance to get into the middle a little bit more. You can have a little more free-flowing attack in the final third. That being said, I think it took a while for them to develop chemistry until really that play. And I think this is a good point from the Discord in terms of the changing back and forth between strikers. I think it's hard to kind of make things work.
Yeah, Detour28 from our Discord, join our Discord, said, can we have a striker complete a full 90? We have other attacking options that can be subbed in to make an impact. Don't think either have gotten into a rhythm because the starter only gets 60 and the sub gets 30. I think that's a fair ask, and it seems like the one thing that Moyes is almost automatically going to change every match. It's the foregone conclusion that he's going to swap them. But I agree with both of you. I think we saw some signs from Barry, and given the limited minutes he's had this season, those were really encouraging signs. And other things were just kind of a byproduct of a lack of minutes and familiarity with the guys around him. So you see the potential, you see the development, the end product's not there. He has the missed chance. And then you have a moment of maybe immaturity with the really bad sliding tackle, which was kind of ridiculous. But that's what you're going to get with a young player like that. And it's just, he needs the experience, he needs the minutes, he needs the time.
I think the yellow hurt us a lot, honestly, because he stopped being as aggressive as he was initially. And I think that helped us defending-wise, too, because as the match went on, they were just playing right through our press like it was nothing. And I think the miss got him down a little bit, too. You could tell he was a little frustrated with things. That being said, one consistent theme we've had now for a while is Moyes' changes and his ability to kind of alter the match or dare I say, change the story. I think the first one is looking at the changes he's made from a substitutional standpoint have been, for the most part, negative in a way. Certainly did not change the game in a positive way. How do we think Moyes did in that respect? We'll get to the tactics in a second.
Well, I think you can characterize the Dwight McNeil substitute for an injured Ndiaye with half an hour to go.
Anyone explain that one?
Is one of the most shocking things I have seen this manager do. One of the worst substitutions I've seen in some time at this club. I mean, especially given the other options on the bench that we still have not seen, that we've spent enormous resources on this summer. You could do any number of changes, bring Roll on, move guys around, bring Tyler Dibling on, the guy you chased all summer. He can't seem to get into the team. You bring Charly Alcaraz on at that moment, play him off the right is a viable option too. I was just floored by this, and it's, you see it and you're like, okay, well maybe, Dwight will do what he does and he can show up in individual moments and score some amazing goals. And then he just looks completely off the pace, looks nowhere near ready for first team minutes, and kind of just vindicates that first impression you have when he's coming on. And it made us much worse. And we looked, he had no role in any of the chances really Everton created after that. And I was really frustrated to see that substitute.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's just frustrating because you're not setting the player up to succeed either. I mean, you look at the game state of that match, and I don't think Dwight McNeil is somebody that's going to unlock their defense given the lack of pace. I think given just even the ability, to be on the ball, right? And it just materialized how you'd think it would within the first 10 to 15 minutes. If you were going to bring him on at set pieces, why not just do it in the final 5 or 6 minutes, worst case, or even the final 10, versus where I think the game is still in just kind of a really steady flow. We're getting also pulverized, right, by them for a large period of time, as you mentioned, Ryan. So I don't think he is going to change the story. Someone like Merlin, someone like Charlie, I think just to at least kind of bring an element that we didn't have on the pitch in a positive way would probably be, I think, more likely. But then I think if you're Tyler Dibling, it's just very upsetting.
I agree. I think it's a bit of a slap in the face for a player who clearly is in better form, even though he's not playing as much, and is a much better option here. Dwight can carry the ball a little bit, but on the left side, where he can put someone on his right hip and slowly go up and down the pitch, Dibling can really run with the darn thing. And I don't, maybe he thought because Ndiaye was putting in such a defensive shift that he needed Dwight in there to do that. If that's the case, I'd play Charlie. I mean, I don't know why on earth you would play Dwight. And it was obvious. I think he had something like 14 touches and 3 terrible touches. Some of his first touches, like 4 or 5 of them, were outrageously bad.
I think he had 6 giveaways, Ryan. 6 giveaways on 14 touches.
Not his fault, really, though. He's just not ready to play. And it doesn't make any sense, really. I think lots of questions about the younger players here, too. And I think we have some issues with Moyes in terms of what is the plan for these guys. And again, there's some limitations in terms of what he can do with the team. But I think the second series of subs was a good series of subs. But I think it happened way too late. I thought Charlie was a good sub. This match was ready for Charly. I mean, he should have been sub 20 minutes earlier. Yes, I know there were some issues later, but he was at least driving the ball forward. And honestly, I thought this was a really good match for Tim Irabunum. They weren't calling fouls. I mean, you basically could punch someone in the face and steal the ball. I mean, for someone with his physical profile, as badly we were getting beat in the midfield and as dumb as with the extended pressing was, you drop him a little deeper, and now that gives you another ball winner. It really gives you a physical element. To Sunderland's credit, I mean, they're a very athletic and physical team. What about tactics, though? I mean, you can make all the subs in the world, but when you're getting pounded that way, I mean, I guess the one wrinkle we saw is no Mikalenko pushed up in the half space. He was staying wider. Jack was tucked in a little bit. Jack got the ball a couple times in the middle of the pitch, and I actually kind of liked him there. Jack was having to defend a lot again. Dewsbury Hall was all over the place. To his credit, his work rate is unbelievable, but you didn't quite see that balance again. He was just kind of roaming. But at some point, don't you have to change things tactically? I mean, the only real adjustment I saw is shifting a little bit over to the right when Lafie was running ragged and putting Ghana to kind of mark him a little bit. But we were doing so much man marking early. Like, Ndiaye was behind Jake 4 or 5 times because Jake would push up and man mark Enzo Lafie, who was roaming. So that confused things. When Enzo started dropping into the midfield like the third man, Jake O'Brien didn't know what to do. So he would just float around between the lines like crazy, and especially in the second half where Jimmy Gardner just was out to lunch. I don't even know where he was half the time. So can we not change the system up? You know what I mean? Like, that match to me was calling, just dying for a back three. You know, at least that way you force a back line to push up a little bit or crowd the space. If your midfielders aren't going to drop back and do it, I don't know. Something has to change there, right? If you really want to bring Dwight on, then maybe that's the change you make. I don't know, guys. I mean, I saw really not enough tactical adjustment. When you're getting your tails kicked in that badly, you got to change the system or something, right?
Yeah, for me, what's so frustrating is, as every Everton fan, you start that match, you're doing really well, and I think some of what Everton were doing well was because Sunderland were really sloppy on the ball. They were giving the ball away really cheaply and putting us in some good positions to attack. We had a lot of space, but then they adjust right around that Barry chance. They make the adjustment, and there's no counter response from David Moyes. It is very similar to what we see. We keep trying to do very similar things. We try to go long a little bit, but it just doesn't work, and there's no iteration on that. There's no evolution.
And there were signs at the end of the first half too, James. We'll get into that in a second.
100%.
That I think that there needed to be changes made at halftime, not
Agreed.
Even later. And certainly we did not come out of half ready to play. I think in terms of lineup, the only change is really the Barry Beto.
Yeah, it's just Barry Beto, nothing else major. Moyes, we've talked about the need to make changes. We'll talk about it later on in the show, but I think it's important to highlight Sunderland so far this season because we all know they've started the season really brightly, first time back in the Premier League in 8 years, and they made a lot of signings. They've made a lot of they've brought a lot of new faces in, but they've taken to the Premier League quite well overall.
A tough place to play, and I'll tell you what, they looked like they knew exactly what they wanted to do, once the match got going, and credit to Labrie for having them so well organized.
Yeah, Labrie, I think, has done something very proactively, and he changed the lineup against Chelsea, went to, as Ryan mentioned, a back five, deciding to kind of put Gertruda and Mukiele, who are kind of just naturally more right-sided players, and they're both playing center backs, where Mukiele playing kind of right center back, Gertruda playing left center back. You wouldn't know it just because I think they look pretty comfortable given the system. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of understanding their personnel. I think, like you mentioned, a ton of signings in the summer. Really the only two guys that are missing right now are Habib Diarra, who I think you really wouldn't notice it given how much they talk about Granit Xhaka as the summer signing of the season. Did you know, right? But Noah Siddiqui, really, really good player. I think they did a great job of really, Everton take notes on how to kind of transform a midfield in one window. But then you look at just kind of where I think the opportunities for them to improve are, and it's kind of the wings. It's 2025 and Bertrand Traore is starting for a Premier League team, especially one as effective as Sunderland. It's kind of wild to me, but of course Enzo Lafie, very, very solid player. And Will Isidore has actually, kind of one of their guys that came up with them from the championship, has done a pretty good job for them this season. Of course, Mayenda has, started the season, and Isidore, and now you see Brian Brobby even getting minutes, and he played, he's been playing pretty well since he's come from Ajax. So, and you can't speak enough about Robin Roofs, who's actually done a very good job. We talk about how important goalkeeper is for Everton's sake. I think they'd be pretty proud with who's in goal for them right now in Sunderland, because he's just very assured, doesn't really make many errors, and he's just strong in the box, right? So when you look at the team, it's a pretty good spine and that midfield, but it's one of those teams too that doesn't want possession, right? So it's just, they are a team that has, as Ryan mentioned, a ton of athletes, even with somebody like Xhaka, who's a little bit slower but very methodical, almost kind of that quarterback on the field. But at the same time, they are just going to be a hoss on set pieces, right? Just, you see the Mukiele throw, as well as Dan Ballard, and we didn't really speak about him, but just an incredibly burly center back that's actually quite athletic when you look at just how he moves. So interesting matchup, but I think from an attack standpoint, not very scary when you look at Sunderland.
Yeah, they have some guys on the bench that they didn't use today. Adingra has not been great for them. Rig, some guys that are talented, didn't need to use them today. I think, it's one of those situations where I think the manager's done a very good job putting guys in positions to succeed. Like Trihume, I did not believe was in any way, shape, or form a Premier League right back. But he's really aggressive, scrappy, and he's athletic. So if you put him out there in like a wingback situation, you've got a bit of a different player, and it's a physical matchup. And I think those two guys as wide center backs, that's the perfect use for those guys. I don't think either of them, obviously one's more of a fullback really than the other, but you put them in those positions and you saw them. They could rotate and get forward. They were creating overloads by pushing up, and then the rest of the back line would rotate over. They were very fluid at times in terms of their shape. Do they have the dynamic forces in the final third? No, not really. But defensively, it makes them really hard to play through, and Xhaka was showing that today. They were getting the ball in the final third very well today. They just were not clinical, which thank God for us, or else there's no way we would have come out with the point on this one. Some interesting matchups today for sure. And we bring up Xhaka, but I'm sorry. Their midfield, they make it tough for you, but I think they also have a support around them, and it was very much a unit. They're not feeling pressured to get too extended. I think they maybe were a little more wide open at the beginning of the match, and then you saw them kind of combine together, limit the space, and they gained a lot better control over the match, whereas we did the opposite. We just too much space between the lines, too much disorganization. I think Moyes is maybe a little over the top with the man marking aspects of stuff. We never really sat back and just pulled back from the press and really tried to be sound and solid and build from there, whereas it seems like they did, and they certainly grew into the match. I can't point to too many matchups that we won, really.
Yeah, I think the one that stands out most is Granit Xhaka on the day, just against our midfield. I think he was just absolutely dominant in terms of possession. He was second of all players in touches. I think first were one of their center backs. 9 for 12 in long balls. He had 5 key passes or chances created, and then he, of course, got maybe a little lucky with the deflection for the goal, but he did run the show in midfield as part of a cohesive midfield unit. Contrast that with Everton. You see Garner, who I actually thought started the game fairly decently, then just completely disappeared and left Ghana having to do so much work covering space for him, as they just had that midfield three outnumbering us and moving the ball very easily forward.
Yeah, and then Ghana had a much better second half, too. It was just very, very uneven. Kind of getting into the timeline, there are obviously some big moments, and a couple moments that I think really shifted the momentum in the match. I think there's a timing here that we can talk about. I don't know if it's really causation or not, but it was a really interesting beginning of the match where Everton were very front foot, making things very difficult for Sunderland. And while I wouldn't say Sunderland is the most technical team in the world, I think so that played into our benefit, making things a little chaotic. I actually thought, if you had asked me the first 25 minutes who were the more quality team in terms of on the ball, I would have said Everton.
Oh, no question about it. Everton it really felt like, Moyes had changed the story to start. We finally have gotten out of this rough slump, but I guess in hindsight, it's not really that, because Everton have started games very well for the most part, like in a lot of cases. And we see that, almost in the first minute, Garner rips that shot, really proactively shooting, and gets a little bit unfortunate. But then Ndiaye, the goal is ridiculous. This is another ridiculous highlight reel to add to Iliman Ndiaye's video compilations that will get millions of views. and exposure throughout the football world, because what he does here, the dribble, the ability to just kind of shimmy away from the defenders to create space for the shot, and with his left foot no less, is incredible. And yeah, Thierno Barry does play a role in the setup for it, but it's very much, I think, an individual effort from Ndiaye to create the space for the shot. And then the finish, the curl on it, it is just sensational.
I will say this, the more and more you can get him central so he can attack the goal rather than sitting out at wing and pinging the ball around. Bottom line is, though, no matter where you put him, he's just a really good player. And he had these guys on strings. They did not know whether to come after him or not. He's too quick on the ball. The control is way too tight. His balance is too good. XG
strong.
0.11. Oh, he's so strong on his feet. Like, he's just so you've seen the exercises he does pushing against the ball. But, he just spins off players, and he's so tight, and he gets kind of low. He's not that tall. He's not that small either. But, yeah, XG of 0.11. Post-shot XG of 0.63, and I don't know who on earth is going to get that. I mean, the keeper just stared at it and said, ooh, wow, not saving that one. Phenomenal goal, really. He's just a really special player right now. And, the nice part is if you're not getting much from Jack, maybe you get something from Iliman. And I think after the first 25 minutes, I mean, I think about the yellow card that Siddiqui took, kind of flipping out after he got mad at Garner. This match there was so much rough play at times. I don't even really know what to say. It wasn't really all that attractive to watch. Then they get the yellow for dissent, and then it was like they couldn't possibly commit a foul the rest of the match or get a card. You've got the Grealish shot that hits the post here. It was kind of a sneaky play. I think the funniest part of this play was Ndiaye heading the ball as he was falling over.
So good, man.
I know.
Like, even as he's being clumsy, he still demonstrates such amazing skill. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, a terrible cross after that one by Dewsbury Hall. I mean, there were two guys wide open. That was such a big chance. But the real big chance came in the 27th minute, and I just wonder if this had turned out a little differently, does it change the outcome of the match? I'm curious your thoughts on this one, because, look, it's a great pass by Jack. The timing of the run is perfect by Barry. The anticipation is perfect. He gets right there and just puts it over. It's hard to put it over, I think, from there. It's not as easy a shot as people may think, but I still think you have to finish it. When the keeper's not getting there, you got to put that one in the back of the net. I think it's hard to argue that one. We've had some that I think have been exaggerated in terms of the chance. This was a big one. Center forwards miss chances, though. It does happen. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but I don't know. What do you guys think? He finishes this one. Does this match turn out differently?
I think it's a massive change to the match, but then also the confidence of a striker, right, which right now is very low. And for me, that was more important than the result, just because I feel like this is going to be a problem until one of these guys just, starts to kind of just put the ball in the back of the net consistently. And it's unfortunate because he, as we mentioned, Ryan, he had a really bright start to the game. I thought his effort levels were pretty good. He gets in the right spot, right? So you give him credit for making the run and putting it there. It is just funny, though, because, you play football, you touch that, a little bit and it skies, right? So it's not as easy as it looks. However, Premier League forward, as a guy that is as talented as him, he has to score, right? I hate to say it.
Has to.
But yeah, so I felt really bad for Thierno Barry more than, being up 2-0, but it would change the story because they have to chase the game, and then you can play right into they'd have to play right in our hands for the ability to counter.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I can't sit there and say that we deserved more than a goal from the first 25 minutes. I mean, Iliman kind of created something from nothing. But yeah, it is a shame. And then the retaliatory, like the response to get the yellow was so just foolish, childish, and just not the right move. Someone's got to pull him aside and tell him to just relax as well a little bit. I would
second time he's done that too, by the way. So yeah, this is not the first time.
I would give him a run of games, though. I mean, I would, but he can't do that because I actually would argue had he did not take the yellow, I don't think he subs him later. Now, I know people would argue, well, it's a pre-planned sub, basically. It was so predictable. I said 57th minute. I think it was the 56th. But it's hard to argue that from this point in time, the game just totally changed. Now, I'm not going to say this is why. I'm not one of those idiots on Twitter that just goes and says, we need a new striker, that's all we need. It's not like we created a plethora of chances. But boy, things did change very drastically from here.
Well, quickly on the striker thing. No, I don't think a new striker changes all of our woes and our struggles. But we've got two strikers now who are clinically underperforming their XG by like big margins, and we're creating maybe one big chance, good solid chance for them per match. And okay, not the finish rate might not be that high, but they just have to start finishing these, and it has to be. And like you said, Sean, if that one goes in, it changes everything. Unfortunately, with a player like Thierno Barry, I just think he does kind of lose his head. He doesn't have that sort of even-keeled mentality that you get as a more mature player. And I think he kind of just lost his head after he was so frustrated with missing that chance and let it get to him. But yes, it did completely change the match. Right around the 35th minute is when Sunderland have really their first noteworthy chance or period of sustained possession in the final third. It ends with a Traore volley that goes over the net. And I thought, okay, that's kind of their response. But then, the Stadium of Light.
Talk about a bad miss, by the way.
It's a bad miss, but it's an unbelievable atmosphere. And I thought that, we took them out of it with the goal. We completely took the crowd out of the game, and then they started to get a little angry at the referee. And then once Sunderland start to pressure into halftime, get closer, the crowd really got into it, made it a lot tougher for us. And Keane has a really good intervention on Isidore in the 38th minute. He was pretty much in on goal. He blocks it. But then right before halftime, Sunderland nearly equalize. It's a scuffle at the far post. It would have been a little bit of a scrappy goal, but very scary for us to just for the pendulum to completely swing the opposite direction. And all of a sudden, we're scrambling, we're on the back foot, we're searching for answers, and Sunderland have really composed themselves and finally starting to generate opportunities.
For me, the signs were there, though, that we needed to make changes, though. I mean, the last 15, 20 minutes after the Barry miss, 6-1 in shots, 66% possession, 95% pass success. And we just kept pressing up there with Dewsbury Hall being the second guy and Barry. They were a little disjointed. It's kind of man marking the six, but when they dropped the second guy back, it didn't matter. They were just cutting through us like crazy. If you have time on the ball, in the Premier League, those guys can complete a 40-yard pass on the ground. It's not that hard. And when you have a roaming guy, Lafie in particular, they were playing to the right side as well, you've got to make some changes. Just vacating the midfield constantly in the third man, we were just outnumbered. And that's what you saw, and it was really dangerous. And we were, I think, a little bit fortunate for them to not create even bigger chances. So you kind of get to half, and the numbers are still fairly favorable for Everton, with the exception of one or two metrics that were interesting the way that played on forward. The XG numbers are pretty obvious, but a lot of that's the Barry miss. Shots on target were the same, but I think if you looked at this, you said, okay, Everton up 1-0, that's about right.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were the better team for the majority of the first half. We let things slip. And I thought in a lot of ways it was actually very fortunate that the break came when it did, right as Sunderland were kind of getting going, because you go into halftime, you could make adjustments, you kind of kill any momentum, you have a fresh start, and you come out and you get back to what's making you successful.
And that's what happened, right?
That is not at all what
didn't happen.
Instant equalizer for Sunderland within 43 seconds into the half. Their first possession, it's Granit Xhaka. Again, it's very unfortunate for Tark. He tries to stick his foot in front of it to deflect it out. It kind of just rockets into the top of the net. Pickford completely taken out of the play. I don't know. I saw some people saying as a center half, you just let that go because it's on the ground and Pickford has a read on it. I don't know about that. I do think as a center half, you're trying to get blocks, but the way in which it happens is unlucky. And again, the crowd immediately just into it, everything to play for, a full half to get a winner, and it's not looking good for Everton at this point.
When it's that far away from your body, it might be right. That's probably one you don't necessarily go get, but it's hard to prevent yourself from doing that. It's just a shame now we've had 2 goals where his deflections have cost us. And this is the guy who's consistently been the best shot blocker in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong. The fact that he wants to sit back, peel off, and block shots, I think, is problematic. And I think part of the dysfunction of the team right now, that's how it is. But after this, man, it was just all Sunderland, like you said, and the crowd was going crazy.
Yeah, and so Enzo Lafie has this outside of the box shot. It's a really good save by Pickford also, too, almost very much like a hockey save. And then we get into a really, really good comment by Mo Beto Blues. How long is this power play? Because I don't think we had the answer for
Ice
it.
The puck, Sean.
But it was a lot longer than I think any of us wanted it to be.
Well, he said this probably right around the 50th minute, and unbeknownst to us at the time, the power play would go on for the vast majority of the second half. Is at least what it felt like. I mean, they were just all over us. What did you guys think about this Trey Hume challenge on Grealish?
Awful.
That was shocking, horrendous. The power he goes in to his leg on. No, I mean, you can see he is kind of trying to play the ball, but gets none of it. And the contact with Grealish, that could have been a total career ender, honestly, on a different day. It was nasty.
I know egg prices and beef prices are so high right now, but these challenges by Noah Siddiqui and Trey Hume have just a level of aggression that I just think that are not necessary, especially in a match like this. But it is funny, right? Because as Ryan alluded to, and I actually give the ref a little bit of credit for letting stuff go, but then when you let stuff go, you get things like that, which, we were unfortunately the guys that were getting these nasty challenges. It's just a real shame too that none of them were reviewed. I understand they're kind of on the borderline orange standpoint if you look at yellow and reds, but the fact that neither of them were reviewed, I think is annoying, just simply from the intent, right? You look at the intent for both those guys, not great.
I mean, I don't really want to see crap like this. I don't know about you guys. I just don't. Of course, right on schedule, Moyes makes a sub, Beto for Barry. It's so predictable. I'm not saying it was the wrong sub necessarily, but I don't know. It's just a shame that Barry took the yellow. I think I'd rather have him in there. But we needed a lot more than just this sub. And did this sub improve us?
No. And I don't think it was really, the problems we were having were getting the ball forward. It wasn't who it was going to when it never made its way forward. You have to change the setup further back to yield results and get service to the striker.
No, and there was no one that was going to carry the ball except for the wide elements, especially in the 61st when Ndiaye comes in. We'll talk about that sub in a second. But my problem is it was almost more of an excuse for Pickford to keep hoofing the ball up and overshooting him by 20 yards. I mean, that just so wasteful over and over again, to the point where Beto couldn't even come close to the ball. I mean, at least put it a little shallow where Beto can bang the guy back. And, to Ballard's credit, he was pinning him pretty well. But, the ball was nowhere near him. I know the conditions weren't great, but, I guess Pickford's just not familiar with that place. Wait, he used to play there. Okay. Let's move to the 61st minute. I know this is an unplanned sub. Thankfully, it was just a cramp. We've talked about this a little bit in the beginning here. We don't need to do this any more disservice, but this is an absurd sub. But what I also have a problem with is surely you're watching the game here. We're getting just stomped repeatedly. You've got to make a sub. Is this maybe a chance to change the system or do something different or bring some other personnel in? Don't waste the sub window by just putting one guy in when it was clear that we'd need much bigger changes. And the fact that Dibling didn't come in here, or even Charly at this point, is absolutely disgraceful to me. And I'm more and more I think about it, I don't understand that at all. And if you got a guy like Tyler Dibling, you've really got to start to question your decision making. But we'll get to that in a second in terms of what changes he can make, because I think Moyes just seemed like he really jumped the shark with this one. 72nd minute. Is this a handball on Michael Keane?
I certainly thought it was. I'm glad it wasn't given, but it just continues to be a mystery to me every single week. I don't understand what a handball is in the Premier League. I thought I understood, having played soccer most of my life, what a handball was, but my ball knowledge is just under question every single week. I thought, the hand's out. Hits his hand just inside the box. I thought we were going to concede a penalty there. I don't know what to make of it.
It's a handball in every other league in the world. I know the Premier League has a very distinct interpretation.
It's a handball in the Premier League, depending on the week,
too, isn't it? I don't know. Sean, is this a handball for you?
It's an arm ball. It's a handball. It's, Keane was like a jellyfish with his tentacles out. It's just, I listen, I'm thankful to VAR. Every time I feel like a decision is pretty clear, it's not. So this was kind of another, this falls in that regard. I don't know. Sunderland fans have every right to be upset. But thankfully for once we get the decision in our favor. So
it helped Moyes too, because he didn't have to make a change yet because we weren't down. So that's good for him. Ball that was headed over in the 81st in for McKaylee. Finally, he makes a sub in the 82nd minute. I mean, how many minutes late is this one? I do think the subs were okay in this instance. It's his last window, though. But, guys, I don't mean yet another, though, opportunity. Like, again, it's just way too late.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the subs were good. I'm glad he finally yanked Dewsbury Hall because I don't think he was super effective.
He ran his tail off, though, in his defense. I mean, he had to be exhausted. The effort was there.
100%.
This isn't a good game for him, though, don't you guys
That's
think?
what I mean. But that's what I mean. I said probably at the 30th minute that I thought this game was crying out for Charly Alcaraz. I think it was maybe less so in the second half because we were, under so much pressure. But when there was space to run into and you want Charlie driving the ball forward, I thought he would add a lot, and I thought he did add a lot, so I thought it was a good substitution. The Jake O'Brien yanking for James Garner at right back, I mean, again, like at that point I put out a post on X, like right side of Jake O'Brien and Dwight McNeil for 10, you all watch that for 10-15 minutes, and it's like I don't know if there's a worse right-sided combo in the Premier League. Like that is horrendous. So he does change it, but I don't think Garner did a whole lot of right back. He looked a little bit clumsy, to be honest. But overall, I thought Tim looked pretty good, able to do his thing, cause a little bit of chaos.
Good
be
match
physical,
for him.
for sure. So I think this, but again, okay, so the good sub, the most impactful sub comes with under 10 minutes left. That's not good enough. It's not proactive enough. It doesn't put us in a great position.
I mean, you knew the style of game that was being played at this point. Like Dewsbury Hall had a really good first 20 minutes, running in behind, running into space, letting Jack sit deeper. There was some good combination play. It maybe lacked a little quality in the final third, but he was very much an engine. And when he's playing well, you see that. I mean, a couple of times he stayed on his feet very well, even though sometimes he gets overwhelmed. But by the time the game was us sitting back a bit, him running out and pressing up top was pointless. So him sitting deep, he's just going to get his tail kicked in. He's too small. He's not strong enough. Like the game was calling out for anyone at that point. Whether it was Tim to be the third midfielder, that would have been fine earlier. Tim can run with the ball a little bit and carry it behind. Or Charlie. I just don't understand it. Like you see, games are refereed so differently in the Premier League. Conditions change. You've got to adjust to those. And the 82nd minute is not the time to do it. I don't think Brobbey made much of a difference for them. I like him as a player. It's nice to have someone that comes off the bench that gives you something a little bit different. We did have a couple chances here at the end. Mikalenko's shot was decent. Whose fault is this in the 93rd, gents?
It's Charlie's. I mean, it's to me also, but so
Ghana has to stay on side, but maybe should play.
Ghana has to stay on side, but it's like one of those things that make a decision, right? Take the shot. If you miss it, you miss it, right? I feel like this is almost like an Everton gif, right? It happened with City last season
too, though.
He is, and I just think it was one of those games where I don't know if it was the slipperiness of the pitch, right, where he just like felt like he couldn't get a handle on it. It was just also too, right? I think a lot of our guys, Tierno included, just have a ton of pressure on them to perform in such a tight window. So you're not playing with as much freedom as you might usually. And unfortunately, I love Charlie. I just think it was a bad, kind of match, 10 minutes from him that are going to unfortunately be highlighted, between the Thierno Barry miss and that situation. And you saw Moyes' frustration. I don't blame him for being really frustrated in that moment. I think the key is just make a decision, right? If it's the wrong one, it's the wrong one. But this happens so many times with our players where they make no decision and then it just infuriates everybody.
Yeah, I just think it's his fine margins at this level, right? When you look clean in on the break, you hesitate for literally 1 second, and all of a sudden your opportunity's gone. I think he probably has to lay it off there, but the indecision does cost us. And honestly, I mean, looking back on that chance, you have to say that we had, despite the kind of domination from Sunderland, we really probably had the best chance to win it in the end, which is kind of crazy at the very death. But after that, things just kind of peter out, and we escape with a draw, which I think, honestly, an away draw for how good Sunderland's form has been at home. They have not lost yet this season at home. It's really not that bad of a result. When you look at the performance, the numbers are kind of staggering, especially in the second half.
Yeah, thank God. These numbers are pretty outrageous, gentlemen. I mean, I know we looked at the first half numbers and they looked okay. We obviously went through the momentum swings, but wow.
Yeah, 32 accurate long balls for Sunderland at 52% accuracy. Everton had 15 long balls, less than half of Sunderland, at a 33% completion. Pickford, as you said earlier, Ryan, was kind of hoofing it long as the default, and he was 5 for 22. That's not great distribution, not really what you want to see. Passes into the final third. We know that they were just camped out in our final third most of the second half. Xhaka had 18 by himself. Ballard had 16. In Ghana, 6 apiece, led Everton. Not a lot of penetration. Unsurprising, we didn't create a lot of offense.
We'll say this, though. KDH had probably 2 decent chances to get both Beto and Dwight, in space, right? Just couldn't connect. But yeah, it's just
ball over the top though, Sean. The one he played right to freaking Beto's heels. Like, dude, what do you? That was frustrating.
Or just you play it in space, right? Like if you don't think you can get the perfect pass, you just play it in space and you live with that result. But I think he was just trying to be too much of a clinician there, and it failed both times.
I can't believe he even had any legs left in his defense. But yeah, lost the ball a couple times during that sequence as well. But I mean, the XG numbers, 61% possession in the second half, 0.75 XG versus 0.02. 0.02, folks. 10-1 in shots. I mean, what do you say to that? It's just... But yeah, I think James, to your point, the numbers when you have Xhaka and Ballard, 18 and 16 passes into the final third each, to me, that speaks to the lack of pressure on the ball. Like, you can't have a mid-block and not put pressure on the ball at some point. You're just overrunning those guys, letting it play behind you without pushing everyone else up. And I think that's a bad combination of a back line that wants to fall off constantly because they're not high-line guys. They're afraid to put pressure on. And Moyes has said in the past, he likes athletic guys at center back. Well, he doesn't have them. And he seemed okay to bring Michael Keane back. I know he's very well-liked and he's playing very well. But it's a combination of the two, I think, that's bad. But you also had a chance to sub off Tark and bring Jake on, but there's no chance Tark can get subbed off. So I just think it was a tactical mess, man, and I think they took advantage of it. It was very obvious.
I also think, just a little bit of a lack of intensity from Everton off the ball. You talked about Sunderland's 61% possession
certainly on
in the
goal.
Second half. They had 8 tackles to our 6 in the second half, and they had 61% of the ball. They won 63% of their tackles. We won 33%.
It's probably all Ghana, too.
I think Ghana had 4 or 5. I think he led Everton for sure. We know that you can't rely on Ghana every single game. That has been an entire season. The previous season was exactly like that. We relied on him to clean up everything. I think we're going to forego the good performances, guys, for the second consecutive match because that was extremely frustrating. Ndiaye's goal was unbelievable. Grealish created a couple good chances. But overall, it's really hard to look at that performance as a whole and say that anyone was particularly good. In fact, I'm a little frustrated with Jack Grealish. I thought he kind of waned, and I know he's doing a lot of defensive work, but his early impact and getting all the national media attention and blah, 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 a little frustrated he hasn't been more impactful.
James, you're starting to sound a little bit like Jackson Bugle here, just in general.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jackson from X said, I don't want to be a doom and gloom kind of person, but that's 1 win in 8 matches now. That's Everton firmly in the bottom half. I'm not saying we should be shooting for Europe, but Moyes should be under some pressure because that is not where we should be with this squad. Gentlemen, agree or disagree?
Well, I don't think the squad is all that great because you've got massive holes and you have no flexibility because of those holes to some extent. That's not an excuse for Moyes to show absolutely no adaptation whatsoever. To me, a big measure of a manager is when things don't start off well, how do you change? When things start going wrong, how do you change to fix things? In terms of in-game adjustments and just, the other thing is too, I don't know if he's a good match for some of the young players as well too. I really think sometimes young players fit better in a little bit more of a well-defined system, and I'm not so sure he really does that. I don't know. Yeah, I think he deserves a little bit of grief. I don't think this is a great team, but every match, the only match where it looked like we did well after we made subs and as the match went on was the Palace match. And Sean, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times. I got a feeling that was more just because Palace was dead from a European match. This is a repeat thing over and over again. I'm not seeing any signs that this is changing. Stagnant is probably good. I think FM Warrior 19 says it very well here.
Yeah, and FM Warrior 19 says stagnant, uninspiring, annoyed, terrible pressing, great goal by Illy to give us a point. McNeil being subbed over Dibling. Charly is baffling. Moyes has got to change things up. To answer your earlier question, James, I don't think he's in pressure in any way of losing his job. I mean, please look at the available managers. I dare people to that keep saying Moyes out. It is not a good list at all.
That Wolves shortlist
Russell Martin
is tough reading.
Yeah.
Benitez.
Thank you for answering my.
Ryan, don't even say such things, you sicko. What's wrong with you?
I will say though, he's under pressure to make changes though, right? Because at the end of the day, there are players like Adam Aznou and Tyler Dibling that I think were sold a story, and that story has changed dramatically, right? And in regards to playing time, in regards to, I think, just the way the season has gone. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Adam Aznou expected to be the starting left back given Mykolenko was here, but I thought that he would at least get, some cup time. I understand he had an injury and he came back from that, but there are moments that you can look to in the season where these guys should have been integrated. And especially with Tyler Dibling and AFCON coming up with Ndiaye being gone, right? Are we just going to see 90 minutes of Dwight McNeil like for, the month of December? Also, too, you can't integrate somebody just like put them on for 90 minutes, like just for an entire month. No one's asking for him to be the starting right winger. Let's get a little bit more integration with somebody like him who is PL proven, who is, a guy that can change the game. There's got to be something that is holding him back from Moyes, and I'm just curious on what it actually is.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, you could talk about that a little bit, and I want to talk about the changes we could make in some of those guys, but Mike Wombat Combat makes this comment here in the Discord. Moyes is outmanaged for a good portion of the game. It'd be one thing if I felt like, let's ignore the development for a second and say he's really win now type of guy. I'm not seeing the type of adjustments that I would expect someone that's really focused on winning now either. So I'm really kind of questioning his utilization of the personnel and how well he knows them. Again, to be a little more balanced, though, their goal came from a deflection on a shot, Mike continues on, that Pickford seemed to have covered, and the subs actually helped us gain some control back at the end and even have a couple chances, multiple chances to still win it. And actually, when Charly came on, this is the thing that's killer, though. Charly came on, and I'm sure people will say you missed a big chance, whatever, even though I felt like he was at least driving the ball forward. But to me, that it's almost like a double standard there. He's going to kind of hold that against Charly, whereas Charly was playing well before and didn't come back with a start. So I don't know, man. But I think it's worth asking a couple different questions. So number one, Dewsbury Hall was okay tonight. I don't think he was great. I think the match itself lended itself more to Charly, just from a physicality standpoint, sitting behind the ball. What about Jack down the middle? I mean, I don't think Jack was particularly effective today. I mean, one chance created was a very good chance. He did hit the post on a nice shot, but that was a very central place. Only 40 touches. I mean, that for him is pretty low, I think. Only 2 times in the box. Did have 2 recoveries. He was playing good defense. Like, he was definitely working. But to me, I mean, he looked like he was running with the ball okay. Is it time to maybe change him up, throw him down the middle, put Ndiaye left, and maybe Dibling right, or maybe play 2 strikers, or change something. Like I'll tell you what, you put Iliman as like a second striker with Jack behind him and Barry. I mean, it's not the craziest thing, especially maybe you play a back 3 and put wingbacks in there. I don't know. I mean, look at what the difference it made when Sunderland came out and threw a wrinkle in one match, just one match, and they got a really important win. I mean, you think Marco Silva is going to be ready for that type of switch? No.
No, I think it's a fair call out, and I think just generally, if you can get Jack Grealish closer to being able to link up with our better attacking players, that is just on its face going to improve things. Right now, he's linking up with Mykolenko a lot. He's got Dewsbury Hall kind of dropping over to his side. That's not, I think, a recipe to get the best out of Jack Grealish. If he's not completely isolated, he has Mykolenko as his outlet. I mean, that's ridiculous. So put him in a position where he can move the ball to either side, get whether it's Dibling on the right, whether it's Dwight, whether it's Charly, you have Ndiaye on the left. I think that gives Everton a lot more of a dynamic look than what we currently have right now.
Any change, you can always revert back to what you're doing now. They know how to play this scheme fine. It's about time. To me, I also think of ways you can get the other guys on the pitch. I still think Tyler Dibling, in a match when you're going to get on the ball, is a goal threat. We need another one. If you put Jack in the middle and even put those guys on the wings, maybe that works out. And maybe Dewsbury Halls can be more effective in just one match coming off the bench. You know what I mean? With his work rate and getting on the ball if we need more control, I don't know. It disappoints me. There are some options I think you can do. This flat back four too. Like, why do you continue to insist on playing all four of those guys if you know they're not good enough? I don't know. I just think there are a lot of things he can do. He needs to make a change that's more than just making the subs. I also want to see Barry stick out with it for now. I want to see him come back in. I just think that's the right move, personally. Or go Michael Keane up top. I think that's a good move. I'm not being serious. That would be insane. I will say this, though. The fixtures do get a little easier, right? Fulham at home, that we should do fine with that one. At Manchester United, they're playing better, but okay. Newcastle at home, that aren't playing well. I mean, these are a little better fixtures, I would say, than the previous three, where we've played 3 top 5 teams, which is kind of weird to say, right? Kind of true.
Yeah, I mean, it's a much more palatable fixture than playing Palace, Spurs, and City. And then, of course, at Sunderland, right, they're having a great season. So I think that point just can't be thrown away. I mean, it's still a valuable point in the grand scheme of things. December is where it gets crazy, but we'll talk about that at a later date. I think more than anything, it's just a tough time when 1 win in 8, right? That'll put, I think, the fan base in a little bit of a tough spot. But at the end of the day, still, it's the best start Everton have had in some time. They're still in an okay place. And I just feel like this is a team that will start to figure it out later in the year. It's just there are some actual issues, right, that we've talked about, especially with Tyler Dibling and Adam Aznou, and really James Tarkowski, that we need to figure out.
Is it time to sit him down? I mean, I hear you. This team should get better, but I don't see any signs of improvement here.
Well, it's hard when the manager isn't incorporating the players who were purchased to both improve the team in the long term, but also give reinforcement in the short term. If you just don't play those guys, and I get there's been some injuries, like Aznou was injured, Roll was injured, but you got to use the guys.
Yeah, and so for score predictions, we actually had quite a few folks that were right today. Sunwave Cat, he also gets 2 points, given that Ndiaye was the correct prediction. TJ Biro, also 2 points with Ndiaye prediction. Bad Gumby, Cam Liza, 13. Mark, Southeast Michigan Toffee. Tony Sampson, Drew Berg. Just to let you know, our upcoming pods, we have Fulham and United post matches coming up.
It's like Tony Sampson 1-1.
Nailed on. All right, that's going to do it for us on this episode. Reminder to join the Discord, get in on the score predictions competition. We'll maybe do a leaderboard update in the Discord here soon. I think we're probably due for one. As Shan mentioned, we got Fulham coming up, then United. Join us for those. If you enjoyed the show, again, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment on YouTube. Find all of our social links in the description. Buy our merch. If you enjoy the show, we appreciate you for tuning in. We'll be with you next time. Until then, up the Toffees.